Hello, everybody. We're back with the Synnection episode, and today's guest is Carrie. And Carrie is an entrepreneur. She has built several businesses, helped build them. She has a background in online marketing and also travels. And yeah, I'm very excited for what she has to share with us today. So let's jump in. Hi, Carrie. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be on this episode today.
Yeah. So I'd say let's jump straight in. You build communities. Why?
Yeah. Yes. Why?
Like, why?
Yeah, so I think like most people, it comes from my own story. I've just I've always been a people person, and I've always really loved connecting with people. Um, just from the get-go, like when I was younger, I loved like meeting new people and just with and getting their story, and just really always intrigued by different people's stories. And I was in a couple of different groups. Like I always felt that even in like high school, like the group that I was in, I never really like felt like I associated with just being in one group, but I was always unique, and I loved like meeting new people and all that, and just like bringing people together. Um, and that was always a part of me when I was younger. And then when I got out of college, I felt like community was really missing in my own life. And I started jumping and diving full-fledged into different communities, different online communities. And that's where I felt like most myself and where people really got me. And I was like, well, there's definitely something to this community thing where people could just feel this connection and connect with other like-minded people. And so I started to see different connections that started showing up, that I would just be involved in these communities, and I would love them, and I wanted to do that for my own self. Like I wanted to really get people to start connecting with one another, because I've had a lot of instances in my life where I felt really alone, and what was really missing was this community. And so I know really how important it can be. And I just I want to help others to find their own communities, whatever it is. So that's why I just love building communities. I love seeing the connections that are made. You never know when you jump into a community. You feel like you're getting something, but you're always usually getting something else. It's really interesting.
So, do you have an example for that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, share,
Um,
please.
I've been a part of like business communities, and I've ended up getting like best friends out of it, and people who are totally not like business like to me at all, but we end up like sharing really like personal stuff and like things around health and relationships. Like I've been a part of this amazing community, and I found one of like my best friends now from it, and we talk about like just shit about like guys and health and relationships and dating. And so I went in with it thinking I was going to find like this accountability partner, and I ended up finding something totally different. So it's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, what are the kinds of communities that you've built?
Yeah. So I've worked with a couple of people with building communities. I feel like the first community that I really built was like this more like startup like community, but it was it was where we helped people to come together who really loved online courses,
Hmm.
and we built a community around that. It was more online, but you could take it to events and workshops as well. These different types of communities, and everyone had that different interest in building and like really like these more tactical skills like web development and learning digital marketing, and that's what really connected them. So that's like
Hmm.
bringing them together. That was really cool to see. I've been a part of different communities. I've worked with more of a like a meditation teacher and helped him build out a little community of their own. But more so, I've also built out like outside communities as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see this like community management thing like showing up in my own life, like where I'll like build a community like around like with my roommates. Like I'll be like, let's have dinner together. Like let's do a potluck thing together, and like little communities like with my friends. Um, and so yeah, it doesn't always necessarily need to be this like online thing, but I've seen like I've been building like I've always really I've built mastermind groups, so little mastermind communities. I've also worked. I have this app that I go on. It's called Poshmark, and we do online trading and selling clothes.
Yeah.
And I started to build like a mastermind around that. So I like whenever I jump into something, it doesn't matter if it's my life, if it's something that's more business like, if I'm working with someone, I always think, how can I connect people together so that people could learn from each other and grow from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, is there a process that you follow or a strategy that, if I or our listeners wanted to follow that, what would your strategy, your process be?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like with community building, it's so important to get really clear. I would say there's 4 phases to it that I
Mm-hmm.
like to look at it. The first phase is just like the foundational phase, and it's really just getting super clear on like what your message is, why you're doing it, like what's your purpose. And I would ask yourself like 3 main questions would be, so what is it that you're building? Who is the audience that you're building, and why are you doing this? Um, and getting as clear as possible. And you could just do a whole different bunch of activities to get really clear on that. That would be phase 1, and phase 2 would be like more of the brainstorming ideas. So now that like you're super clear on, you're super clear on your audience, and you're super clear on like what your message and what the need is that you're helping people to fulfill. Like
Mm-hmm.
what is it that kind of that thread that connects them? Since you're super clear on that, you could start to think of the ways like where people are hanging out. And so you start brainstorming. And so you start brainstorming like the different ways that you could get in touch with those spaces, because those people are already hanging out. Like they're walking on the streets, like they're in like the coffee shop, they're on these different blogging communities, they're out there already, right? So now you have to figure out like where are they hanging out and how you want to approach them. And there's different vehicles that you could use, whether it's online or whether it's you want to do work more in-person stuff. So that's like where the brainstorming part comes in. And yes, and understanding like where it is that they are. And then like the third part is just like more of the admin tactical like things where you now use those strategies and you implement them, and you now go after you now like go and present your message to the people. And now that you have that clear message, you know who your audience is, and now it's like attracting it, basically
Mm-hmm.
attracting those people to you. And then the fourth part is really just like reflection and growth. So seeing like where people really responded well to your message and reflecting on that. Like, what did I do well? What can I do better? And really like growing from there. And now with growth comes like what happens now when they're in your community. So now that you have all these people, and like how do you cater them? How do you cater to their needs? Like where are they now, or like where do you put these people? Like where are they being able to communicate? How do you even get them to
Yeah.
communicate with each other? That's like a whole nother thing. Like how do you actually get these people to open up and want to communicate about these different ideas?
Mm-hmm. And then, so you say you do that all the time. Would you say anybody, I say, okay, I'm kind of lonely. I want to connect with people.
Yeah,
What would you
yeah,
tell me?
definitely. And I think that this is interesting because this is something that I started doing as well.
Hmm.
Um, So if you're in a stage where you're feeling like super lonely or you're not connecting with the people that are around you, then you could start to build a community of your own, or B, you could go out into communities that are already built as well. So for
Hmm.
instance, I just moved to a new area, and I wanted to meet other like girlfriends, like women who are really like me. So I started a women's circle, and where it'll be about things that I'm learning right now. I'm learning a lot about a couple of things and I want to share it with others, and I want to other people who are learning the same things as well, and I'm creating that community for myself in my new area. So it could really be around anything that you could build a community. Like if you have a certain interest, if you're into web development, or if you're into a sport, maybe, like you could just build a meetup group around
Hmm.
that, and find out like what makes you unique from the other groups that are out there. Like, why do people want to come to your group?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love it. And
definitely. Yeah, and
so,
I and it's yeah, it's really just finding out like what you feel, if you want to build that community for yourself, if you want to go out. But I understand like the loneliness and the lone part. And a lot of the times it feels like you're just missing connection with people who just get you. So what you have to do is just figure out what it is that you like, which sometimes is hard for people to figure out like what is it, and start to look for people in that area that are surrounded by those types of things, like, and really get those message and get that message, and reach out to experts in the field, or reach out to other people who are kind of going along that similar journey, and it doesn't have to be so much. You could just create a small meetup, you could create a Facebook group, like whatever it is, where you could just start surrounding yourself around these people, because like they talk about the rule, you're the average of the five people. So once you start surrounding yourself with those type of people, then you'll start growing more in that area, and you'll just start feeling better. You'll just start feeling more connected.
yeah, that's so true. I've noticed that in so many, well, I move around a lot and going to new places. That's definitely, yeah, it makes such a difference to go out. And I like your approach of saying, hey, you can build that community too. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious to hear more about your, what was it, female circle,
The
the
women's
women's
circle.
circle? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I started to read a lot about
the women
uh,
code.
the women code.
Yeah.
You know it very well.
Yes, I do.
I started to read more about the women code, and I started to just in the women code, basically there's a lot in it, like, and you could just go into different areas like with this idea of femininity, like
So
it's
I'll quickly explain. So the Women
yeah.
Code is a book by Elisa Vitti, and she talks about the female cycle and how that uh, affects how we feel during that cycle as a woman. There are tons of great exercises and tips and about how you can make that easier and how you can actually utilize your cycle towards or in your lifestyle to really benefit from it, because there are so many things that in a certain week really make sense, and then in the next week you might focus on something else. So I'll link to the book below, but yeah, continue. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So in the book, actually, the first four phases are really about a lot about food. Like it's really heavy on food, but there's so much more besides food when you start linking up with your, you know, your cycle. There's lifestyle, there's exercises, there's relationship, there's sex, there's business. So everything is just so connected, right? And you could just really jump into like all those areas itself are super intense. Like you could just like start reading, getting more knowledge into that area. For instance, around exercising, right? Like you could start to like learn from experts in exercise, like what kind of approaches for your body. And same thing for business. You know, you could really dive into like how to adhere this feminine side in your own business. So there's just so much to talk about. And I love sharing it, and I love talking about people with it. And the groups of circles that I'm in, I don't have a lot of people around me that really get it, or just don't really want to practice this way of living, which is awesome. Like that's totally fine, you know. But I wanted to open up the conversation for other people to start talking about these things, because I found what an impact it has had on my life, how I've really like stepped into this more confident and powerful woman because of this new outlook on my life. And so I wanted to open that space up for people who felt like they were struggling as well to talk about these things, like especially like sex. You know, people really like are hush hush about these kind of things. Yeah. And or periods, you know, and I wanted to open that space up for people to start talking about these things if they wanted to talk about it. Because if it felt like where I was coming from, it felt like a struggle where sometimes I can't talk to certain people about this, but I could talk to them about other things. But I wanted a space where I would be able to really talk about these different types of things that are so prominent in my life right now. And and besides that, I want a bunch of like cool girlfriends that I could just bond with over different things. Like I said, when you go into these kind of circles, you think that you're getting one thing, but you end up getting more meaningful relationships and just cool things that you could just learn from other people. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And the idea came, I was reading a blog article from one of the experts in one of the fields, and she started her own women's circle in where she lived. And I was like, oh, well, this is a really awesome idea. And I love communities, and I want to build a really cool community out around people who feel the same way, who are hanging out in New York.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, maybe I should start a group here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like, there's so much going on now in this space for women. And also, I think men could really take some of these principles as well. Not to become more of a woman in any respect, but just allow things to be a little bit more, a lot of these things allow lives to be more in ease and flow. Like I have a lot of men that come up to me, that approach me and are like, how do I, like, things are so hard and I want like a simpler life. And including this more feminine energy, you don't get rid of the masculine energy, you just blend them together. And so I think men as well could really benefit from some of this feminine like energy.
Yeah. And so much good stuff coming up with that, the stepping into the feminine. More interviews coming up for you guys soon about that topic, and also other stuff brewing in the background. I'll keep you up to date.
I'm excited to hear about it too.
Yeah, so what's your plan with for the next couple of months in 2016?
Definitely. Well, I am right now building out a community. I'm working with a co-working space, building out a community. I forgot to add that to the communities. But I'm also building out my own women's circle community. So that's really exciting for me, just to take it each step at a time. just seeing what comes to me, what comes out of this idea, and really just focusing a lot of my energy into it, and just really stepping into my own feminine energy as well, and taking the time to really foster that and create more fucking fun and
I love
pleasure
that.
and
Yes.
excitement in my life.
Yeah,
Seriously, I'm
cool.
learning a lot of cool things around new areas that you wouldn't think would be fun. Like some areas, like with creativity, like with clothing and makeup and cooking and like yeah. And I'm learning from a lot of cool people as well. So yeah, that's what's coming up for me, and just creating more fun and pleasure. And yeah.
I'm looking
And,
forward to
yeah.
that.
Well, things are brewing.
Yay. Yeah, cool. So, what would be your number one advice to our audience about, yeah, whatever, pick one.
Yeah. Um, Number one, that's hard, but I have a lot of things. But I'll say around communities, which I think that if you are feeling alone, and you are feeling like you don't have, if you are feeling alone and you can't reach out, you're feeling stuck in the group that you're with, or it just doesn't seem like something's meshing, then I would just get really in tune with what it is that you like to do. And if you don't know what you like to do, then just keep figuring it out. Or you could reach out to me. I'm open to anyone reaching out to me as well.
Yeah.
And figuring out what it is that you like to do, and either creating a community like that or jumping into a community that embodies that, what it is that you like to do, and can really get to you. And if that seems fearful for you to really go and do that, then you could reach out to me, reach out to someone to hold you accountable to because that's just a lot of fear that's going on, that you can't go make that jump into these communities. And just remember that any of these communities, like one thing that one of my good friends recently told me was to start being genuinely curious.
Yeah.
So when you go into these communities, just have a really open mind when you go into them, and don't necessarily always look for something out of it. Just go in it with this open spirit and really receive whatever you can from that experience.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So, what's the best way to reach you? I mean, I'll make sure I link to you in the blog post, but
Yeah. The best way to reach me, you could either add me on Facebook. I think add me on Facebook, and you can message me on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I could give you more details, like to a more personal way to contact me.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm definitely open to anyone who wants to talk more about this. And if they're also struggling finding community as well, or if they're fearing moving into a new community, and especially like if they don't know where to reach out to communities or how to build communities, anything around that.
Yeah.
Or anything about your feminine energy too, as well.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And make sure you reach out to Carrie. She's awesome. We've been talking for a while now, and her
Thank you.
the way she approaches this whole community thing really got me curious. That's why she's here now. And reach out to her. But we also have the last question that I always ask, and we don't want to skip that. So what would you tell your high school self if you could travel back in time?
Oh, God. That's such a good one. Wow. I know exactly what I would tell her. I would tell her that it's really okay to be unique and be different, and just really embody that self, and just do it. Just be that creative, unique individual rather than following the pack.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I love how you combine your own uniqueness and authenticity, and that there's so much about you that makes you, and then taking that into a community and saying, hey, this doesn't have to, you don't have to change, or blend in. There are communities where people get you, and that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank my high school self, because she didn't know where to reach out. So so it was just a learning experience.
Well, thank you, high school Carrie. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom. There were definitely some truth bombs in there. I'm excited to put together the post for this interview. And for all of you out there listening, hit like down there, comment, let us know, connect with Carrie, especially if you have trouble reaching out, or if you want to embrace your feminine side. And thank you, Carrie. This was fun.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for the community for listening to me and my whatever I could share and help you guys with.